for listening to the Unscripted Dreams podcast with Joe and Marcus. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at unscripteddreams@gmail.com. Please support us on Patreon at the Unscripted Dreams podcast, where we have exclusive content. If you're listening on YouTube, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Thank you.
Hey, what's up? This is Joe.
It's Marcus.
As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad. The day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. Woo, that's a tongue twister. All right, this is episode number 4, man. Survivor's Remorse. Okay. The term survivor's remorse is pretty deep, like super deep. If you only heard it associated with certain things like the D word, quote unquote, death. Let me break down what survivor's remorse is, or how we perceive it. Survivor's remorse is also known as like survivor's guilt. And it's really something that people experience when they've survived some type of traumatic situation that others might not have, made it, quote unquote. So, like, the common things that are associated across the whole spectrum of the term survivor's remorse would generally be guilt over like not dying. So, say you were like a vet in the war or something of the sort, and say that one of your what's that, your partners or compadres, how would you say that, Marcus?
You say comrades.
Yeah, one of your comrades. I play Call of Duty. I should know that. One of your comrades, unfortunately passed right before you, or however it may have happened, they had passed. It's a very serious subject, but at the same time, we're not taking it that can be processed, but we're not focusing on something along those lines. It's a little bit less tense than that. Another factor would be guilt over actions that were taken, and guilt over that what wasn't done, or what you failed to do. Those are more so along the lines of what we're focusing on as far as survivor's remorse. So when I talk about survivor's remorse, I I mean, it haunts me daily. This is one of the reasons why we kind of want to talk about it, given all the extreme events that's happened lately and stuff. It's a lot of unforeseen circumstances going on in the news right now. So, survivor's remorse sticks with me daily. And, I often think about people that had better opportunities for me to like flourish, and they just didn't make it to where they were destined to go. So, the inevitable may have happened. Some traumatic event occurred where they couldn't pursue what they were initially destined to be. Maybe they had a change of heart, or even, they let things go to their head and they kind of, fell off their game, so to speak. So I think about the term because a lot of things has happened to me in my very short life. And a lot of people fail to accomplish or obtain some of the things that I have managed to do. Vice versa, actually. And people have, more or less shedded tears, blood, wasted time, and loads of money just to fall short of whatever endeavor they tried to pursue. And nothing's more compelling than a story where somebody then laid out the groundwork and pretty much outworked everybody, and all of a sudden they just fell short, and people knew that they were destined for greatness. Um, you know, and sometimes that happens because some wounds are self-inflicted, and others were more so unforeseen circumstances, which kind of like tarnish their endeavors. Perfect example would be somebody that has hoop dreams and they were probably the best athlete you've ever seen in all of time. And then some unfortunate circumstance, like they might have broken their leg or they blew their knee out or something. And, that's the end of their career. It happens all the time. So we're kind of speaking along the lines of that, not so much as thinking about the inevitable. Um,
So,
yeah.
real quick, just to be clear on it, you're speaking in survivor's remorses more so conflicting emotions about your own success and the things that you've obtained that others maybe don't have or had the opportunity to have, and they didn't reach the level that you've reached.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that you build your whole life around, or more or less, you guys have the same ideas, or you guys are pursuing similar lines of dreams. And for whatever reasons, you got a job that sends you well on your way to where you set up for life. And this person was way more skillful than you were. And for whatever reasons, they fell through the cracks. It happens all the time. So that's what I mean in terms of survivor's remorse, man. Like it's something that's very serious, and I think about every day because it's one of those things that kind of like keep me grounded. It keeps me humble, just because I know how much I've worked to get to this point in my life, and by the good graces of God, I've made it to this point. I have a lot to go, but I also need to reflect on where I've been and where I came from to get to this point. Now, when I speak on this terminology, I know you're not super familiar with it, but just to open the conversation or the level of thinking to our listeners or our audience, what's your interpretation of survivor's remorse? How do you take it? Like, how do you comprehend it?
Well, initially, I think when folks see the episode, the title of the episode, and they see it, they're immediately going to think of a traumatic event where someone survived and the other didn't. That's what naturally comes to mind. And what was funny for me was to get an understanding of the episode, to get an understanding of the topic. I had to kind of look at. I didn't know LeBron James had a show that he produced called Survivor's Remorse, and it. And
Yeah.
what was funny is that the premise of that show uh, captures what this discussion is going to be about. Is them achieving success and feeling bad because other people, the people that they were around growing up, or the area that they grew up in, those individuals there didn't achieve the level of success and have access to the things that they do on a daily basis, almost on tap, uh, to an extent.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's real. Like, that's how I view or envision survivor's remorse. And I've never seen that show a day in my life.
Haven't
Um,
seen it either.
I don't think I will either, but but more power to them. And I appreciate, I think it's pretty cool that, you can come up with a concept or idea or perceive something that someone else perceives as well. And you guys kind of take it to two different, you present that mindset in two different art forms. So basically, man, with survivor's remorse, man, it's just, this is kind of like a reflection episode. So, like, when I think of it, man, like, there's a lot of people that, I've grown up with that weren't blessed with the opportunities to even go to school, man. Some of it was due to financial circumstances, others were due to people having offspring. People had just weren't in the game, where people just said school wasn't for them. Um, and nothing's wrong with that. I support those endeavors. Actually, when I think about hindsight, was school really worth it? I honestly can say yeah, because of the exposure. But at the same time, from like a get money standpoint, I didn't need to go to school really. I didn't figure that out till way after the fact. But it would have been a lot harder for me to get to where I am now. I'll tell you that much. But I definitely could have achieved the same amount of success from a professional standpoint. I just would have been. It would have taken me longer to get there. So that's basically how I view it. So when I ask a question about something where someone's unfamiliar with this term, and I think it's the best thing to do is kind of pick your brain a little bit, Marcus.
Hmm.
Is so now that you understand understand on the level of what survivor's remorse is, do you suffer from it yourself? Do you find yourself suffering from it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not in that sense. And I really think it's because of kind of how I grew up. I don't necessarily see myself leaving people behind, but I also don't feel as if I've achieved a level of success that people may want. Just being where I'm at right now in this moment might not be in my mind. It's not successful because I haven't achieved the goals that I want. I'm on track, but I'm not accessing things on a daily basis that I couldn't imagine myself having as a kid or when I was younger. Now, one day I might, but right now in this moment, there's not there's not a I wouldn't tie success to that to success as far as it being something that I have that others don't have.
Okay. And the reason why this is a perfect conversation, just because you're not familiar with that. That's not how your brain thinks. That's not something you were. That's just not part of your upbringing. I've had a lot of friends where ran into a lot of unfortunate situations, whether it was like addiction to substances, people just didn't apply themselves and the inevitable happened, people do pass away, it's part of life. And, I think about these people all the time and I'm just like, man, like half of some of the ideas or half the motivation that I've gotten over the years is from these people. And somewhere along the lines, they lost their way. And yet I'm still out here doing it. And, nothing's more dissatisfying to me to actually experience something like that. I'm sure people can relate. Like, there's a lot of people that have way more potential than you do. And for whatever reasons, they just didn't apply themselves, or, like I said, some things didn't happen to them. And here's a sure shot way to know that you're dealing with survivor's remorse for people that don't even know that they're dealing with it. I have a list of bulleted things where they kind of help you think about it in the terms of how I do. If you're having like flashbacks of certain situations that didn't happen, that could have been handled better, where they were like almost defining moments. Maybe it's something that you said or something that you've done, action wise, or something that occurred, and it's just the way how you reacted. That's a form of survivor's remorse. If you think of, like if you feel any like level of like irritation about your current situation or about how things just happen, that's a form of survivor's remorse. Having difficulty sleeping, feeling immobilized, numb, and disconnected. For a long time, I did feel that way when I was in school, just because I was so used to being a certain way where I had to basically recreate and retrain my thought process to run along the lines of moving forward with my life. I have a formula down where it's new to me, or it's not new to me now, but around that age of 17, 18, 19, where I first started to battle these type of things, man, it's it's rough, and what better way to get through these type of situations is to actually bring awareness to it, man. I think that that's the number one thing to actually do with life is to address situations, like bring it up, don't hide them, talk about them, man. Whether you have some type of thoughts that are unfavorable, where you might want to do harm to yourself, any type of mental, anything that can be associated with some type of mental illness or mental issue, that's something you definitely need to address and you need to speak to it. Survivor's remorse is nothing short of that. And I feel like a lot of people should educate and speak on it because a lot of people do suffer about these type of things, and it's not uncommon to deal with guilt. You know, you deal with guilt all through your life, you just may not realize it.
Yeah. So uh, my question, my question is because it's I said the way that you're looking at it is there's some complexities there because there's a I feel like there's a similarity between survivors, what you are saying is survivor's remorse, and what is just a feeling of like guilt or regret. Like there's things that everybody regrets. There's things that everybody feels guilty about. How do you think those tie in? Like, for example, uh, like sometimes there's situations, there's people that I wish that I was able to work with, that I wish or I have regret that I wasn't able to help them more with problems or issues that they had, but I wasn't able to do it. And for me, that's a regret. How does uh, regret differ from survivor's remorse?
I think it's like a subcategory of regret, to be honest with you. That's how I envision it. And survivor's remorse is more or less the aftermath of the level of success you've received from that outlet or whatever it may be. So, say that you didn't got to where you wanted to be in however form or however it was laid out for you. So now you're reflecting on, oh, damn, like this situation could have been better if such and such was around, or if this didn't happen, or if this didn't occur.
Okay. Uh, just because I feel like it kind of is, based on your, perception of how, events and things kind of turned out, and what you think about certain situations, as far as like for an example, my history working with individuals with intellectual disabilities, and most recently working with folks with a traumatic brain injury. Like I at times, you know, like these are good people, they're good people, and their lives have been changed dramatically. These are folks with, at least with the individuals with the TBI, these are individuals that were walking around doing, things operating as you and I do. And then in a second, their whole life is changed. And the way they were able to do things has drastically changed to the extent that some of them, some of these people aren't even able to take care of themselves anymore. And they need significant supports to do so. So, in that sense, for me, there's a sense of guilt if I'm not doing everything, in my power to help people and pursue the passion that I have. There's guilt. Like I said, there's guilt there, that if I don't, like if I sit around and I'm not doing anything and I'm not being productive in a way that will help people, then I'm not holding up my end of the bargain, because these folks that you come across, they're good people, and they had hopes and dreams that were kind of squashed by an unforeseen accident. you know so I really, I think that I just think it's different levels to it. And it's not that, like, sometimes you don't leave anybody. In my case, I haven't feel like I leave anybody behind, but there's situations in which you know I you know I kind of leave, but my goal is to once I get to where I'm at, I'm going back and I'm pulling those folks up with me. It's not, but then it also goes into your level of association with the individual.
Right.
And if you know somebody that you grew up with, and you guys have known each other since you were, essentially babies, then that relationship is going to be a little bit different. Um, if you came up with somebody and then you all go your own separate ways, and then you kind of can look back and you see this individual isn't where they could be based on their potential.
Right.
And I kind of think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I think the lens that we view it is different. Um,
And nothing's wrong with that.
so 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 why do you think, as far as you refer to survivors remorse, um, why do you think you carry that weight on that level?
Um, I would say not through all levels I do, but with certain people, I feel like, yeah, if I've taken a different approach on certain situations that happened or occurred at that point in time, instead of just freezing up and actually taking course or action, I felt like the way they've turned out would have been completely different. And I'm not trying to play God by any means necessary or be some kind of like prophet or anything, but there's situations where, I mean, essentially anybody has where they've dealt with where they felt like if they would have reacted in a certain way, or they would have definitely not made a sound decision on something, things would have turned out differently.
Okay, I got you. Because I feel like there's situations where you can sometimes do too much. Like your action could have caused somebody's downfall. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
have, you know,
I can honestly say I take ownership in that too. Like it's not just about somebody coming up. Like there's been situations where I've also think I played a part in people's downfall completely.
yeah. Because there's situations where I think when like sometimes if I've overestimated my ability to help somebody out, like I've kind of maybe have set that person back because they put more faith in me than they should have.
And they didn't have the opportunity to grow.
You know, so it's. I just feel like it's just a combination of things that plays into the concept of survivors remorse, and that you kind of, I don't know, it really just depends on the context, and that you're looking at it, because you can, like, I can kind of look at my life, and I mean, I know, being from, where I'm from, like going to high school in Detroit, I know there's people who have never made it out the city. Like they've never left the city, and that's all they know, and it's like one of my goals is to be able to, go back and to be able to put something in place to where the individuals that really want to make it out, they have an option. Like there's an actual option. But for some people, an option was never presented to them, and you weren't far enough. I think it's important to understand that sometimes you can't help people until you help yourself, and you have to get far enough along to where you can actually reach back and pull somebody else up. But until you take care of yourself and what is, most important, then you'll never be able to reach back and help anybody, because there's a certain level that you have to reach before you can do that.
I can definitely agree with that.
But I mean, outside of that, man, I feel it's really important that, if somebody's struggling with that, or something in the the realm of that. Like if there's, an individual or individuals that, you're feeling a certain kind of way because you left them behind. Um, you have to ask yourself, is it too late? Is it too late for is it too late for the person? Is it a lost cause? Is there anything you can do right now with what you have? I mean, sometimes those relationships they're burnt and they're
Yeah,
done.
they're done
Yeah.
completely. No
So,
relation, too much time has elapsed.
yep. And that's when I think, that kind of, that's just, the reality of it, unfortunately. But, it's, I think it's just really important to, you know, ask yourself, or talk to somebody else about it and see if you've really done everything that you can do. And, if you did, then you have to kind of come to terms on how to move on. And that might be, you might have to go see a professional about that. You might have to talk to several people about that. You might have to jump in the chat room just to see what other people have going on, because sometimes you think you have it bad, then you might jump in the chat room and you see some stuff and you're kind of just like, well, yeah, not as bad as what I'm dealing with, isn't as bad as what these other folks have going on. And I remember one thing my dad told me when I was when I was young. I remember I was complaining about something, and he told me that there's somebody that always has it worse than you. And I kind of carry that with me when I complain, or I think that I'm really down on myself about something. Is that you usually have a lot that's going well, and what you have going well, you can spread that to other people. If you're kind of caught up and you feel bad about not helping these other folks, or somebody fell through the cracks, well, if that relationship is done, then who else can you help? Is there somebody else that you can use that energy that's making you feel bad? Can you turn that energy into something positive, to where you say, well, I let this person down, or I left this person behind. I'm going to use this as the motivation to make sure that from this point forward, if I can help somebody, I don't leave them behind. So, that's my take. That's my take on it. As I said, I try to avoid the negativity, or at least always try to find a way to, find a way to pull myself out of it, if that's what's going on.
Right. Well, let's extend on that, man. So, here are some tips, to cope with quote unquote survivor's guilt or survivor's remorse. The first tip would be, give yourself time to grieve. I know a lot of times I never allowed or had an outlet to give myself time to grieve. I was always on the go, 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 go. If it wasn't school, I was working. If I wasn't working, I was doing something as far as extracurricular to enhance my social skills, as far as like being very active within schooling and, public service. So I never really had a time for myself, so to speak. I was always on the go. Consider thinking about who was really responsible, if anybody. So are you really the one to blame, like we just said? Like, even if you did make those changes, do you really think that things would have turned out differently? Is that just a belief on your end? Or do you personally think that, or do you think wholeheartedly that things would not change, they remotely be the same, or things were meant to happen for a reason, so to speak? Um, Also, remember to take care of yourself, not only from a psychological standpoint, but definitely physically. People don't understand that physical factors play a huge part into how you think mentally. It can go all the way down to the type of foods you eat, how much the intake of water you have, how much rest, all those type of things play huge factors into your mental. Think about what those or who are close to you are feeling about the situations that may come to mind. So, like we explained earlier, like for some of my situations, too much time has elapsed where I don't even if I try to reach out to some of these people or whatnot, it's a lost cause. Like too much time has been elapsed. Like there's no room for relation there or nothing. Like it's just a dead end. So, sometimes you have to process those type of things and then just kind of make a good judgment on your part as far as if to move on. Um, I would say be patient with yourself is definitely important. It's all a process, as you were moving on with life. It's very normal for you to think about things such as this and reputation, emotional intelligence, and motivation. It's necessary to think about all these different terms and definitions, and you got to be patient with yourself because, there's a lot going on upstairs. Not only are you thinking about how you can make the moves in the right direction, you're also thinking about hindsight so you don't make the same mistakes twice, three times, four times over, however many ever times. So sometimes you really have to just sit back and be patient, take a chill pill. The next one I would say is try to stick to a daily routine. Whether you have a set routine where you work out every day, or you do yoga, or the first thing you wake up you read, or coffee, whatever routines that you have in play in your life. I think this will help you transition to the next stage. So make sure you have some type of daily routine when you wake up. All right. And I think the last thing, is kind of self explanatory. You get professional help. So if you think you really need professional help and it's bugging you or impacting you that much, I think that that's something you definitely should invest in. Um, Anything else you want to say here, Marcus?
No, I think I said, I think I said it all for now.
Okay. Well, hey, I can't tell you how many times over how important it is to worship the shoes you walk in every day. So nothing is ever guaranteed, and you should definitely bask in the likings of you. This is the Unscripted Dream Podcast, and I just want to thank you for listening once again.
Thank you.
Later.